So John Wick Chapter 4 just came out. I saw it this past weekend. I'm going to do a review for it. Now, this is the fourth installment of the ultra chaotic action-packed series starring Keanu Reeves. The first three films got progressively bigger and, more importantly, crazier as they went along. When it came to the action, how extended the action sequences were, everything about it. In this film, the fourth film sees John Wick on a quest to recapture his freedom and his debt to the high table. Now, without bullshitting, Chapter 4 makes a claim for being the most unrelenting film in the series because of, well, how unrelenting it is. When it comes to the John Wick movies, there's two sort of signature type of John Wick action sequences that you get in these films. You get the extended hand-to-hand fight sequences with him taking on like 20 henchmen, or you get the close quarter combat when it comes to guns with him with a single shotgun taking on what feels like an army of like 30 guys, henchmen with guns. Or I guess there's a third type, which is sort of a combination of both of these action sequences I talked about. Now, to say that this movie has extended action scenes doesn't really do them justice. The film's first hand-to-hand combat scene that pops up takes place in sort of like a mirror room or whatever, and it's comical how long it goes on, because just when you think like, okay, that's the final kill, more guys will come on and it'll just keep on going and going and going until I was like, holy shit. You know, this is a film that definitely knows what the audience wants from it and is just going to keep giving and giving and giving it. What was surprising about this scene is that the film actually starts off kind of slow when it comes to the action. So I figured, wow, this film might take it a little bit easy when it comes to the action. But that first real sort of hand-to-hand combat scenes featuring John Wick makes it known what kind of film this is going to be. The only dumb part about this particular action sequences was that the guys that John Wick was taking on, a lot of them were wearing like some heavy duty like metal armor, and he was still taking them out with single like blows to the head. But I guess that's just the power of Keanu Reeves for you. Equally as cool as some of the best action in this film is the world of assassins they established in this movie and the whole John Wick series as a whole. You know, these are some cold-blooded mofos that all have their unique traits, personalities, and just show that they're great killers in their own particular way. My favorite of them was a large kingpin type character who, when you first see him and how he starts off, you're like, oh, this guy can't do any damage. But then he shows that he can put up a decent fight and give John Wick a run for his money. The most comical part of the movie isn't how over the top and crazy some of the action can get, which it definitely can be, but it's the people, and I mean the ordinary citizens' reaction to this action going on. There's a scene that takes place in a club, and you're getting like another brutal hand-to-hand combat sequence featuring John Wick in this nighttime club where there's like dozens, about hundreds of people dancing. And yet they just keep on dancing while there's a brutal hand-to-hand action sequences going on. To where it's almost like in this particular world of assassins that's in these John Wick movies, people are just used to this shit. And it's just hilarious to see all this crazy action going on and people just continuing to dance and go about their business like nothing's going on whatsoever. That happens in the club scene. But there's another scene that's crazy where there's like a gunfight that's taking place in the middle of the streets. I won't spoil the location that it happens at. And this gunfight and brutal hand-to-hand fight sequences are taking place in the middle of the street. And yet people are just driving by like nothing's going on. Like it's the equivalent of like seeing a bird on the street or something when you're seeing these gunfights and all this stuff going on. That was actually, though, a really cool action sequence because you had all of these fights and action going on and they had these cars just zooming by. So it added to the level of danger and the intrigue to the scene just because I'd never really seen an action sequence with this kind of effect with cars going by and the fight still happening at breakneck fast pace. That scene was great in its execution. But the coolest scene in this movie, definitely for me, was a gun-related fight. It features John Wick in sort of this apartment building. So like, all right, whatever. He's doing his thing, going down, mowing down fools with a gun. Actually, in this case, it was a little bigger than a gun. It was like a bazooka or something like that. But you get an extended overhead shot to where you're seeing him go from room to room, taking on these guys. And it's a single shot. And it is so goddamn cool. Yeah, at first, it's really cool to see this overhead shot gimmick to be like, oh man, it looks like a real kind of video game, something like that, like a RuneScape level perspective. But then the sequence and just the shot of it just keeps on going on for like minutes. And you're like, wow, this is something really creative, really cool, and something I had never really seen in an action sequence or a movie. Maybe this kind of shot's been used in a movie before, but I've definitely never seen it. And that was just really cool how it was all done in one take. That's always cool when they can do action sequences like this in single takes. Now, the primary new additions to the cast also worked really well here. You got Bill Pennywise Skarsgård, who works well as the new head of the High Table. You know, he was solid in his role and played the antagonist role well. And then you got Donnie Yen, who he was awesome in this. With his character, and I always question the practicality of these blind characters being able to fight so well, unless they're like super powered, like Daredevil or something. But he's like another blind guy, and this character is similar to what he did in Rogue One. His character is really cool. His character actually is really the only kind of like humorous character in the film. You know, the other humor in the film comes from some of these kills that were like, oh man, that's kind of hilarious how that happened. But his character is the only one that brings the real sort of humor. You know, he has some great one-liners that really sort of cracked everybody up, and just his reaction to situations, even the way he fights sometimes is kind of crazy and funny how he does things as a blind man. So he was really good in this. When it comes to your series staples, you got Ian McShane as the sort of the manager of the Continental, and he was fine as he always is in these films. Keanu Reeves gives another amazingly bad yet still awesome performance as John Wick. You know, the worse the acting gets, the better his character becomes, and just the way there's delivery of the lines, it's so bad at times, but yet so good at a certain point. You know, the character of John Wick, they sort of try to write some kind of emotional arc, especially for him closer to the end. Doesn't really mean a ton, but it's there. But you're here to see John Wick kick some ass, and Keanu Reeves has put in great work in these John Wick films, to where he's obviously putting in these stunts. And just the hours of all the work and the stunts for these action sequences, and that goes for everyone in these films, but especially obviously Keanu. He's done great work as John Wick. It's just that delivery of some of these lines, it's so bad yet so great at the same time. And then finally, a couple weeks ago, saw the passing of actor Lance Reddick, who in these John Wick films plays the Continental's concierge. You know, his passing happened a few weeks ago, caught a lot of people off guard. What's done with him in this film is pretty poetic and fits the unforeseen timing of the actor's passing, and is a nice tribute to him in a lot of ways. John Wick Chapter 4 would get a 7.5 out of 10 from me. You know, I don't think it's a great movie by any means. It sort of cuts corners on a lot of stuff, and it's really there to just deliver the action, the craziness, and just the cool vibes of this whole world of assassins that these John Wick films have set up. But it does it really well. You know, it's still a fun movie, and I always give these movies credit for giving the audience definitely the things that they've come to see. They're here to see the crazy action, the extended action sequences, the crazy over-the-topness, and seeing like John Wick take on like 50 guys at once. It's great stuff. When it comes to the box office, this film was a big hit, 73 million domestic at the box office. Another great performance for John Wick. And on a side note, another really piss poor performance from Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which had a major nosedive at the box office after its already disappointing opening weekend box office. Not great numbers for that movie at all, but great numbers for John Wick. It'll be tough to see where they could go with another installment in this, just because it almost feels like they've mined all the territory they could with these John Wick films. Whether they could do more with other characters and all that kind of stuff, I'm sure they could, but will it be the same as watching John Wick and Keanu Reeves and doing his thing? Who knows, but these films have definitely left a legacy in terms of being action-packed, unrelenting, and definitely giving the audience what they want to see when it comes to the action and just the crazy unrelentingness in these films. So that'll do it for this review of John Wick Chapter 4. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching.